This is Joseph Decker with the Joe Show. I want to thank everybody tuning in early and getting onto the show, promoting and sharing this event today. It's going to be a really fun show to talk to these three coaches, three of the better coaches in all of their respective coaches. They're all great coaches. They're all great personalities. That's another reason I really wanted to get them on. They're all great to talk to, and you can have a great conversation with them. So I thought it would be a lot of fun tonight. Obviously, first off tonight, we'll be joined by Coach Steve Page of Great Crossing coming off the state championship. I know he's going to have a lot of things to talk about tonight, and I'm really glad to have him on here to talk about it. It's been really fun watching this squad he has these last few years. So it's going to be a lot of fun kind of taking some trips down memory lane and talking a little bit. We got Coach Colin Doss, who just took the job at Murray High School, which is a big-time job over there in the first region. I think that's going to be a lot of fun to talk to him about, get him on here and kind of do, I guess you could say it's a little introductory press conference in a way. I think it's going to be pretty cool to talk to him. And then we got one of my great close friends, Coach Matt Karn at Brusha. We can talk about his collegiate experience when he was a player. We can talk about this year of him at Brusha, his assistant years, and just a lot of things. He's done a great job with the team this year. He'll be running it back with him this year, and I know we'll definitely be talking about why Brusha and what makes Brusha so special. Once again, thank you to everybody who's tuning into the show here early. I want to appreciate everybody who does that and supports the show. We got a lot of people who's tuning in today to hear about our new sponsors, and I really want to give them a thanks. CNA Plumbing, that is Adam Coates, is back on our group today in Brownsville, Kentucky. Thank you, Adam, for joining the sponsor group again and being a part of everything. They do plumbing here in the surrounding 3rd, 4th region areas. They do great work. You've probably seen the CNA Plumbing ad floating around WNKY News Channel 40. They're doing some great things over there. Tent Studios, that's my great friend, Henry Mendez. Henry does a great job. He's been progressing and doing better and better each month in Bowling Green, Kentucky. He does the best tents. He does everything great with windows. I even believe he's starting to do some housing work. So thank you, Henry, for sponsoring the show, man. B Spring Auto, that is Arlen Blanton in B Spring, Kentucky. Longtime friend of mine. Great person, great human being. He does some of the best auto body work in the area. And Clark Agritech Applicators, one of the most interesting sponsors we have. That's one of my great friends, Cooper Clark. Cooper Clark does a lot of spraying and farming and work with fields in the Big Reedy area, but he doesn't just do it there in Edmonson County. He expands to Butler County, Grayson County, even some work in Warren County. He does a lot of great work. His drone work is really cool. Some of the video he does is awesome. So big shout out to my friend Cooper Clark. And certainly one of our last few sponsors here rolling off is Grable Funeral Home. That's Roy Grable in Brownsville, Kentucky, one of the longtime supporters of the show. Great guy, big-time WKU fan. So I know he's excited about the new guys we're picking up in the transfer portal. But love Roy Grable, great friend of mine, great longtime show sponsor. One of the best funeral homes in the area. They're located right as you exit the bridge in Brownsville, Kentucky. Kind of hard to go over that bridge probably now with the flooding we've had. Also want to say I hope everyone's safe with the weather we've been doing. God bless you all. And last but certainly not least is Detman Law Injury Firm. That is Brian Detman in Louisville, Kentucky. One of my great friends, a great guy. They say he's the best lawyer in Louisville for a reason. He does great work. He's a great social media guy. He posts some really good content, really good guy to talk to and work with, easy to work with, great person. I want to thank him again for being our show sponsor these next 5 weeks. Certainly our last two, but certainly not least, is our behind-the-scenes guy. He runs little things behind the scenes. That's Ronald Scott Lindsay, Judge Executive in Edmonson County, great friend of mine, longtime supporter. And then a new one we added just recently before the show started. That's 270 Event Rentals. That's my great friend Jacob Howard and his group of guys. He told me he wanted me to say this. He said we do chairs, tables, and tents, and we set them up for events. And, you know, you can rent them and you can use them for your own good, for your own events, things you're doing, maybe for your own business, set them out and things. I wanted to give him a little bit of a shout-out and say glad to have them on. Remember, we're going to be making social media posts and promoting all of our sponsors shortly, probably after the show tonight on social media. So thank you for all them. It's not possible without them. But you guys have probably been tired of hearing me talk a little bit. I told the guys I'd only talk about sponsors for 2 to 3 minutes. We were on to about 4 minutes now. So I'm going to welcome on one of my great friends to talk to, man. Steve Page is always fun to talk to, check in during the season, text him during the year. Got to have some good conversations with him at Butler County this year, kind of middle of the year. And, man, they finished it. They done a great job. They won the whole thing. I'm really proud of those guys. And let's welcome on Coach Steve Page to talk to him and hear about his perspective. Coach Page, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. You're doing awesome. That's you laughed and said 2 to 3 minutes, but that's a testament to how good your show's doing for you to have to talk for 4 minutes about your sponsors. You should be very proud.
Coach Page, I appreciate it, man. I hadn't have you on the show yet. We talked a lot, interviewed just about everybody on that team, but it's finally good to have you on, man. Coach, I got to ask, you know, it's been maybe about 2 weeks coming up since that state champion win, but how are you feeling, man? I know it's got to be something great to know you guys got done.
Yeah, it does feel like 2 weeks. It was actually just last Saturday night, so it's only been about 8 days, but But it's been a great 8 days. Just like seeing the graphic below. I love seeing Sweet 16 champion. I was on something yesterday, I think, and they, a couple people mentioned state champion. I'm like, hey, keep saying that, because that's it's as I told our kids, that's something they can never take away from us. No matter what they do the rest of their life, they're always going to be able to say they were a state champion.
It's without a doubt the best feat and accomplishment you can get at the Kentucky level, without a doubt, man. And it's awesome. It's been a fun year this year. There's not been a lot of downs, but there's been some moments you guys have faced adversity. You played some big time tournaments in Florida, going down there and playing some of the top competition in Kentucky as well. You guys got in a really big battle with St. X up in Louisville, where you guys, you didn't win that game. But I wanted to ask you that, with there not being a lot of, moments where you experience adversity with a team, sometimes guys can get overconfident ahead of themselves and maybe not stay locked in. With the success you all have had this year, how are these guys able to keep their head on straight and look forward and keep fighting for the state championship? Because when sometimes you're winning a lot, you can kind of get in the moment, you kind of get behind. So kind of answer that for me, Coach.
Well, first and foremost, obviously we won our first 6 games, and then we did lose 4 of the next 6, starting with the game you mentioned with St. X, and then we got humbled by Columbus, down in Florida, and the next we played like 12 hours after that game. I thought we had a hangover in the first half, played terrible, and then since then we won that second half that day by 8 or 9 points, and since then we've played really well. We had one. Obviously, we come back from 16 down, and we've lost one. Only lost one more game in Myrtle Beach, after that. But we had a lot of close games. So, the kids were very battle tested. We were laser focused this year. 6th year of the program, every other year we had multiple goals. This year we didn't. We had meetings in the past. Said, okay, guys, what do we want the goals to be? We didn't bother with that. We all knew we were laser focused. We all knew what our goal was this year, and anything short of what happened last Saturday night would have been a disappointment for us.
For sure, Coach. I want to talk about this. When you have a team like you do, it's so talented. It's filled with great players. You got a guy like Malachi Moreno, nationally known, Kentucky signee. All the eyes are on you a lot of times. You guys could stay at home and play an easier schedule, but you guys never really play too easy of a schedule. You guys travel. You guys go to events. You go down to a place like Florida, which is no easy travel, and you go play in the City of Palms, one of the biggest events in the nation. What made you want to schedule hard opponents, difficulty travels like that for this team?
Well, we played hard opponents pretty much, all when they were freshmen. We were trying to figure out how good we were going to be. We figured that out, and ever since then we scheduled way up. Honestly, the City of Palms came together three and a half years ago. The director there stays in a hotel actually in Georgetown. He reached out to me the night before the first game of the state tournament, when we just finished those kids' freshman year, and we started laying the groundwork for the City of Palms that morning. But the way I look at that, if you don't accept invites that you have with the group we had, I'm doing my kids a disservice. Because in the state of Kentucky, it's not the NCAA. Doesn't matter. There is no quad one, all those other wins. You don't have to impress the selection committee. They're going to let you in the tournament whether you're 0-30 or 30-0. So, it doesn't matter. And, for us, what it did, especially this year, is there was nothing we faced towards the end of the season we haven't seen before. For an example, when we played, I think it was Montgomery County, we had limited time. We had done some pre-scouting, but had limited time, from our Friday night game into Saturday. And they ran a same little, 2-person flat screen that we had faced. And in our quick scouting meeting, I was just able to say, guys, this is exactly what Frederick Douglass did. That's how they ran it. The kids, okay, yes, this is how we're going to guard it then. So, it enabled us to, like I said, to see everything that we're going to see as the season went on. And I think it made it easier on us, on the kids, and they understood, everything we wanted to do. And again, if you're not going to test a team like we had, then I don't know what you're, what you're doing.
For sure, Coach. I want to talk about this. I'd listened to some of the things you had said, and when you took the job, you said you had, I think it was Malachi and a few others, I think Gage as well. You've had these guys since middle school. You were coaching Scott County Middle
Yep.
School before. You said, what is, we see the development Malachi's had, going from maybe scoring 6 points, 7 points his freshman year to what he is now, and Gage, kind of improving at everything. Honestly, I've always been really impressed with Gage's passing and IQ, but these guys have all improved in a lot of ways, especially on the floor, skill wise. But seeing these kids grow up from 6th, 7th grade all the way up to graduating now in just a few months, what's some of the biggest things you've seen these guys improve on, not just as a player, but as a person and their personality?
Yeah, when they so I had them in 6th grade, and I coached as a head coach of our 7th and 8th grade team. Actually, a good buddy of mine who's down at Pineville now, Brad Levy, coached was our head coach of our 6th grade team back then. But those kids played up. Malachi played a little bit of 7th grade. Malachi was a little bit behind at that point, coordination wise, and such. But Gage was our best player in our entire program. Mentally he wasn't ready as a 6th grader to play 8th grade. So I had to bring him off the bench because he needed that little bit of a start of the game thing. But he was our best player then. And then, fast forward a couple years. So we have open enrollment in our school system. So if you live in our district, you can either play at Great Crossing or Scott County. So Gage at that time, his mom since moved, but lived in the Scott County district. So as an 8th grader, he played for the only choice he had was play for Scott County, where Malachi obviously played for us. So the 6 or 7 points a game you mentioned was actually Malachi in 8th grade. So when both of them became freshmen, Malachi started from day one. Gage probably started 4 to 5 games into his freshman year. Actually had 0 points his first game of high school, and then the next game we played South Oldham, he went 5 of 5 from 3 and scored 21 points off the bench. So you knew early on that those two specifically that I had at Scott County Middle School before were going to make an impact. And for Malachi, he just developed into his frame. He's 6'7", grew 2 inches every year up till this year. So when you're going to grow like that, it's hard to grow into that body. But once he got that coordination and he improved, he was always a good defender, but it really improved his offensive skills as the 4 years went on. Where Gage, where he really improved, he was strictly a 3-point shooter for a couple of years. This year, I don't even think he made 2 or 3 threes in the state tournament, but he was arguably our most impactful player in the championship game, especially when LJ went out with his ankle. And we weren't concerned because Gage's so versatile. He can play point guard, he can play on the wing, but I think he made 1 3 in that final, but the rest of it were drives to the goal. That's where his game really, really improved. He started to be more of a threat, putting the ball off the bounce. Defended really well. Defended Caden Reed in that semifinals. Really well. Was instrumental. Really us pushing that out in the second half. The way he guarded. But both of them just I think this is maturity level. It was a natural progression, but at the same time you have to do it. And sometimes Gage is. I've said all along, Gage is as talented as anybody we have. But he's surrounded by Malachi. He's surrounded by a 2,500 point scorer in Vince Dawson, and other kids, that we had. Obviously, Janias left halfway through the season, but and that was actually a good thing I think for Gage because he moved up a step in our options, and really showed his ability to do more than just shoot the basketball.
Well, I want to talk about Vince. You mentioned him there a little bit, being a 2,500 point scorer. I believe he's the all-time leading scorer in Great Crossing program history.
Yep.
Watching Vince, he's a really fun player to watch because to me, it always feels like he's getting taller, a little bit stronger. He's always progressing as a player. He's so lethal, man, inside of the mid-range. He's got a great little step back, good fadeaway. He's a really fun player to watch, and he's a great human to talk to. We've interviewed him a few times. Tell us a little bit about Vince. We hear about Malachi a lot, and Malachi deserves all the flowers in the world. But Vince, going to Morehead State, this guy's been with you, for a while now as well, 2,500 point scorer. Let's talk about Vince a little bit. What makes Vince such a joy to coach, and how has he kind of grown in these last 4 years, as a player at Great Crossing?
Well, so we had, when I got hired in April of 2019, we had our first open gym. Our school wasn't even open yet. It didn't open until August of that year. So we had it at Georgetown Middle School where Vince actually played. He was an incoming 8th grader at that time. So he was at our very first. I've never coached a year without Vince, without Vince a part of it. And that's what I told him. It's going to be, different for me not to see him, every day. So I'm going to obviously miss that. But, he took the COVID year. So he started 5 games into his true freshman year. So he had 5 years on varsity, was our leading scorer up until this year. And the funny part about it is he actually increased his points per game and his rebounds a game this year. It's just Malachi took, his scoring to another level and became our leading scorer. But, man, Moorhead's got a steal. Vince is a great player, can score at all 3 levels. Sometimes settled, and I didn't tell him every day, but sometimes settled for threes too much. But if you look at his stats for the state tournament, again, he had like 5 or 6 threes. He was taking 4 or 5 a game, and I know he didn't take 20. They had taken about half that in the state tournament because, like you mentioned, his mid-range game is incredible. He obviously had another kid who had to take a more of a ball handling role on when LJ went out. We kind of tandem it between Gage and him, and we teetered in 5 years of playing him at point guard, but I didn't want to take what I thought was his best option, which was scoring away from him. If I put him at point guard, I didn't want to, needed him for more minutes. Felt sometimes he gets tired when he has to handle the ball a little bit more, but an incredible player. And the one thing about him, and I can say it about most of my kids, is, he's just such a good kid. He's a yes, sir, no, sir, type of kid. I do get one more opportunity. Actually, I'm coaching the Kentucky Ohio game this weekend, and Vince is going to be part of that. So I'm looking forward to getting one last opportunity to coach him this weekend. But he's going to be phenomenal at Moorhead.
No, for sure. I agree with you 100% on that. Coach, I don't want to hold you too long. I only got a few more questions, but one thing I really want to talk about is the youth that Great Crossing have. You guys have a great senior class, but I think a lot of people got to see it firsthand. Brady Orem is a freshman, and this guy was one of the best players on your team, if not the best at times during the state tournament. We obviously didn't get to see LJ Holman in the championship game, but guys like me obviously know how good of a talent he is. I thought Trevante Cooper, who actually gets another year next year also with him just being a junior, he made big-time impacts, especially in that Cooper game. I think you guys ran a little 2-3, and he was really big up top. And Graham Schwartz is a guy who's playing this weekend. He was playing AAU, and I got to see him and watch him a little bit. And this young class is really good, Coach, and they got a lot of potential. Talk about those younger guys in the underclassmen a little bit.
We've obviously got some work to do in the off season, and those guys, having different roles. But we said all season, that we will probably surprise some people next year. That the cupboard's not going to be completely bare for us. But it's we didn't know that Brady was going to be able to spotlight a little earlier. I mean, we knew what Brady would give us. Don't get me wrong. Last summer, Malachi obviously was all over the place. With his travels with, going to Europe and USA basketball. So he didn't play a lot with us this summer. And Brady got the spotlight. We played Danville Christian one summer game, and Brady was probably the best kid on the floor that day. So we knew what we had in him. And when Janias quit, one of the kids I could have started was Brady, but I honestly wanted him he was dominating JV, and I thought he needed a little bit more, just for his confidence to play at that level. And he had times, I think it was one guy, I don't think we played him in the St. X game. We just felt as coaches that night it might have been a little bit much for him, and that was probably a mistake. But, every time we gave him an opportunity, he took advantage, and man, did he take advantage of it in the state tournament.
Yeah.
He was great in the state tournament. 5 for 5 from the field against Montgomery County. And then you talk about T2, Trevante Cooper, a junior. Again, these guys practice against the best team in the state every day. So, we try to compete as hard as we can every day. I hardly ever put the starters together. We split up teams. Usually just the day before a game, do I ever put them together, and we split up teams and really try to compete every day. So, they're competing against each other. Graham Schwartz is a kid that didn't have a lot of opportunity this year, and it wasn't because Graham Schwartz wasn't good enough. It was just what he had in front of him. When LJ went down, if we would have won a 7th kid, Graham Schwartz, I told him, I said, you're going to be our next kid, if we go one more deep. So be prepared. He's very talented. We've got our freshman team was pretty good this year. Our JV had a good season. So, you know, and LJ, you know, he's a stud. He's, you know, going to play D1. You know, we were 23-0 when he took over at point guard. That's really all you need to. I guess he didn't play the last 2 games, but either way, that's all you really need to know. I mean, we do not make the state tournament. He had the biggest 2 free throws of his life when he rebounded against Douglas and made those 2 free throws, and had some big baskets, was huge for us against Bryan Station. I mean, sky's the limit for him. He's going to be, you know, our alpha dog next year, and then everybody will kind of fill in, I think, you know, around him.
Well, Coach, it's been a lot of fun, man, and I want to leave us off one thing. You know, I've really appreciate having you on tonight. I didn't want to hold you too long. I know it's an hour ahead up toward Georgetown, but you know, we've had a really big support system. I know the show has been supported really well by your all's community and the Great Crossing community. So I'll always love to talk to coaches and players from your all's group. You know, it obviously isn't possible without the fan support and the fan base these past few years. What's something you want to leave off and say to the Great Crossing fans and how great they've been for you all these past few seasons?
Yeah, I mean, you know, just in all the games we play, man, we love having them there. You know, our entire group. You know, nothing was better the last 2 years after we've won the state tournament, going to visit our elementary schools. You know, our kids love it, and the way those elementary students, you know, really go buy into our kids and love on our kids. And then, you know, we have a basketball camp every year, and it's steadily grown, and we had over 200 kids the last 2 years. So, you know, I think, you know, we love our fans, and I think the big thing about it is they know how good of kids we got. It's hard to get a fan base excited if you're just winning. If you're winning and you got really good kids, then, you know, they're gonna you know, buy into you and connect to you. And we don't win the games we do. You know, at Sweet 16, you know, spring break kind of hurt our crowd a little bit, but at the region, we had the biggest crowds in our last 2 games, and they were very instrumental in making sure we got over the top.
Coach, it's always fun to talk to you, man. I really enjoyed having you on tonight, Coach. If there's anything else you want to leave off, you're more than welcome. But if not, I want to say appreciate you coming on.
No, man, I appreciate it. You keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a phenomenal job.
Thank you, Coach Page. I'll talk to you again soon, man. Of course. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Coach Steve Page of Great Crossing. I didn't want to hold him too long, but I had to make sure to talk to him. We had a lot of great things to talk about tonight. Great Crossing community, the young talent they have, winning the state championship. And one thing I really wanted to hear him talk about is having these guys since middle school. This ain't a team he's only had these last 2 years. This has been a team that he's been working with and growing with recently. Our next guest I'm going to have on the show is Coach Colin Doss, who recently just took the head coaching position at Murray High School in Murray, Kentucky. It's a big role to fill. You know, the Region 1 is filled with a lot of talent. It's a very talented area. I say all the time, Western Kentucky gets underrated a lot of times for the talent they have, and he'll be taking a big role there. And let's get him on and let's talk to him, man. Coach Doss, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing great, brother. How am I supposed to follow up a coach of the year like that? Man, my goodness. Steve Page is a great coach. Now I got to follow him up.
Well, Coach, you know, it actually, you know, now you're kind of one thing, you know, some people might know, you know, you were at John Melvin this season, you know, a college job, and you were great, Coach. You know, your numbers speak for themselves. You know, being there, working with that team, you know, you guys were a top 10 ranked team. Went off with a 25-6 record. You won Coach of the Year, and you know it was a little bit of change of scenery. You know, being a Kentucky guy, you know, going down there, kind of living on the beach a little bit, working in Florida. You know, taking that job. Why did you take that John Melvin job? And you know, what was your favorite part about it? Because it had to have been a lot of fun.
Well, you know, I was offered the job, and it's one of those deals where, you know, when you're like me, you just want to be a head coach somewhere, and someday. And miraculously, this college head coaching job pops up, and then next thing you know, they offer it to you. It's kind of hard not to turn down, you know, no matter if it was in California or Minnesota or Canada. My goodness, I don't care. I'm taking that job. And, you know, I was fortunate enough to be hired by John Melvin, and it made me the youngest college basketball head coach in the country, I think ever. So it was a pretty cool accomplishment to at least be somewhat in the history books there. And the things we did was tremendous while I was there. I'm actually still here in Pensacola now as we speak, but It's just amazing memories that I had with the staff and the players and the community just in year one down here in a little old beach town. You wouldn't think they'd support basketball a whole lot, but my goodness, they did by the end of the year. That's for sure.
Coach, it's got to be surreal, being able to wake up every day, having the beach behind you. You get to do basketball, which is one of your favorite things. It's a great spot. But Coach, you took the job. I think it might be 2 days ago now. It might just be yesterday. You took the Murray head position as the head men's basketball coach there at Murray High School, and it's certainly a big role to fill, going into the first region, playing in the strong first region this year. Man, it was a really good first region this year, and we know the talent's not going to drop off. And, it's going to be a difficult job, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun to see how you handle it, scheduling this year, how you play things. And it's going to be really fun to see Coach Dawes coaching at that level. I've got to ask you, why did you take this Murray head coach job? And, what was your reasoning behind, applying for it, getting the job and, everything? Why Murray?
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough, and I say fortunate enough because it just means so much to me, but I was fortunate enough to play in Region 1 under Greg Overstreet at St. Mary High School.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there's just people say it all the time, and you may think I'm crazy. You may think anybody's crazy that says it, but there's truly nothing like coming back home. KHSAA basketball has always had a very special piece of my heart, at least, and then went down to Region 1 to play for a little bit, and that took the other piece of my heart right there in the basketball world. So when that job opened up, and I was fortunate enough to have some people backing me that really wanted me to look into it, look into the job and look into dropping down the high school level. And I mean, it's something that I just couldn't say no to. It was just one of those things where, I had multiple college head coaching jobs for next year as well, but there was just nothing like, just coming back home, coming back to Murray High School. It's a great community. Murray's a great town. Obviously, Murray State University, college town, so it has everything you could possibly want. And then, you have a great support system with the parents. You have a great support system with the administration, the athletic department, everything there. They have a great football team, great athletics overall.
Yes.
They had one down year in basketball this year, but a lot of people forget, they've really, them and McCracken's been 1 and 2 in the region the past 10 years or so, 8 years, I guess you could say, with Dior Curtis there down in Murray. He did some great things, and it was just a job that, an opportunity for me to get my foot in the door in KHSAA basketball. Of course, I coach college basketball and all that good stuff, but it made me feel like a little kid again. When I got beat up on by Murray High School a bunch when I was at St. Mary's. So it's a surreal feeling to actually be able to lead a program of such prestige and so much history behind it. I believe there's 5 or 6 regional titles they've won, and I think 2 or 3 of those have been in the last 6-7 years or so. So I'm very excited to take that over and the shoes to fill upon in the future.
Yeah, when you talk about the history, it's not just going to be a job to win, but like you say, you kind of got to fill those shoes of the past. So I know you can definitely step up to the role, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Coach, I don't know if you've been able to look into the roster a lot, look at some of the guys you'll be coaching, but this is a younger team in a way. I know they lose 2 or 3 seniors, but they got a really good junior class. Really good junior class here at Murray, some good sophomores. One of my personal favorite players in the state is AC Strickland, high-flying athlete, really fun player to watch. Got to see him at a camp. Have you got to talk to any of the players that, will be here at Murray next season? Have you got to kind of talk to anybody around the area, talk to any of the players yet, since taking the job?
Yeah. So I've talked to most of them, mostly all of them, of course, that I know of right now. I got fortunate enough to reach out to them. Obviously, it has to be over the phone right now. They're on spring break, so I don't really get to go and meet them in person until once everybody's back. And a lot of them's at the beach, so I could just drive over, I guess, and meet them myself. But, I got to talk with AC. I got to talk with Maddox Mitchell, which is another returner, leading scorer, 6'7" guard. And then Harris Moore. I was fortunate enough to actually coach Harris Moore in travel basketball a couple years ago. So we've always had that connection, and it's kind of special when you could make another positive impact on that kid's life, because we did some great things in travel basketball back in the old days, I guess you can say, and now he's going into his junior year, and I get to lead him, which is really exciting. So we have a great group coming back, in my opinion. We have a lot of high potential guys that just need development on a couple ends, tweak a couple things of their game, just 1 or 2 things. It's not anything major, and I think that we could really be a regional competitive team. I believe last year was kind of not up to standards that Murray basketball usually is. I believe it was one of the record-wise, I believe it's one of the worst years in recent history for Murray. So that's what entices me as well, because a lot of people's counting these kids out, and these kids have a ton of potential from the 8th grade class moving into freshmen, the juniors that are now going to be seniors, the juniors that are, the sophomores that's going to be juniors, etc. And then we have a great coaching staff that was there in the past, that was there with Dior Curtis and was there last year as well. So, I mean, there's just a ton of potential with this job, and I'm fortunate enough to coach these guys and implement my system in there, and it's kind of make a mark in Region 1, hopefully in year 1. But there's a lot of great players, and I'm excited to officially meet them soon, next week, I guess, starting officially. But over the phone and stuff, everybody seems very, very excited to be coached by me, which is an honor in itself. I mean, I don't think I'm anything crazy, but hey, if they're excited about it, I'm excited. So.
Yeah. Well, Coach, it's going to be a lot of fun for sure. There's some people that might not know who Coach Colin Doss is. Maybe there's some older people in the neighborhood that might not be as active on social media. Maybe some fans we have tuning in. And you talk about Kentucky Supreme. And, I'm familiar with Kentucky Supreme and what you guys did there. But there might not be some who might also be familiar with what that was or what it is. So, Coach Doss, tell us a little bit about yourself, your experiences before, not just John Melvin, but this new Murray job, so more people can get familiar with you. And maybe, unfortunately, there's some older people probably in the Murray community who might not have social media, who might just happen to tune in tonight to this show. So just kind of tell us about Coach Doss.
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned Kentucky Supreme. We started that program, just me and my dad is who it was. And we started that program back when I was a freshman in college. So I was 18, 19 years old coaching 17 or 18-year-olds at AAU. So I kind of threw myself into the fire, and that's kind of where we started that AAU program from there. And it built to be some pretty cool stuff. I got to play on the New Balance circuit 1 year and everything like that. And once I started getting into the college coaching realm, I kind of took a little step back from it. So that's just a really cool thing to do, I guess, to say, you and your dad get to coach together, and whatever level it is, it's pretty cool to say. And we had a lot of arguments during those summers, but that's what makes it the best part, I guess, the great memories of traveling around the country and coaching and helping all these kids. I think we sent over 20-something kids to go play college basketball, which is, it's an honor to me to be able to say that I had a small piece in that, I guess, get those guys recruited. But started off, I was fortunate enough to work at Marquette University for a little bit in the summers, just kind of behind the scenes with Shaka Smart. And that's really where I learned my whole system that I implemented at John Melvin, and my whole head coaching system in general, really, is Shaka Smart and Mark Dixon and all those guys, staff at Marquette. So it was really cool to spend some time there and just learn from them and whatnot. But I got my first college job. I was the head assistant men's basketball coach at Brescia University under Sarah Gaylor there for a year. So, and then that led up to John Melvin. So, I've been everywhere in a short amount of time. I'm a young guy, but I feel like I have about 50 years of experience because of all the money and gas money I've used and hotel money and all that other good stuff out of my pocket, just so I can learn just one simple thing about being a good basketball coach. So, I put in the work for it. And, when I got that call, of course, being able to be a college basketball coach at my age, I think I was 21 or 22 when I first started at Brescia. So, that in itself was pretty cool. We had a player that was 28 that I had to coach. So that in itself was pretty crazy. But, when I got that call to John Melvin, it was just hard to say no. And we did some amazing things there, obviously. But like I said, a ton of experience in a short amount of time is just from these amazing coaches. It's helped along the way. A lot of them at the Division I level, a lot of them at NAIA level, junior college, even high school level. My high school coach, Greg Overstreet, has helped me a ton in being the kind of coach that I am. So, you pick pieces from them guys. You pick one piece of their brain and another one from another coach, and you just kind of wrap it up in a Play-Doh ball, and there it is. There's Colin Doss's coaching style right there, and it works. Obviously, it works at the college level, and I think it'll work at the high school level because it's mainly bought in around guys really buying into the program mentally, physically, wanting to put in that work and having fun while they play basketball. So, that's another reason. Earlier, you asked me about the interest in dropping down to high school. That's it right there in itself. These kids need to have fun while they play high school basketball. It's going to be the best memories of their life. And that's myself. I get to say, hey, I did a small piece of that. when you remember high school basketball, you get to remember me as your coach, and hopefully I made a positive impact on you. So that's just, it's just in itself. I've been a college coach, know a lot of the college coaching realm and the ranks and all that other good stuff and the behind the scenes stuff of college. But now I'm a high school coach, and I couldn't be happier. I mean, I'm honestly happy. It's where I want to be. It's where my family wants to be. So, I mean, it's awesome, man.
Well, Coach, if a player or a kid in the Murray area doesn't get excited about what you just said, or enthusiastic to want to play under you and play for Murray, I don't know what they're doing. I think that was great, man. I really wanted to get a little bio for the people who might not know, but Coach, you've had a lot of experiences already. You say, you're a younger age, but you've already experienced a lot. So it's really cool to see you come back, to Kentucky, at a younger age still and be able to coach this Murray team. The future's bright for these guys and yourself. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun this season. I'm interested to see who you schedule, who you guys play, maybe some events you might play in, and how these guys step up. Because like we kind of said probably 2 minutes ago, this is a talented roster that, like you said, only has a few things that if they improve on, they can be a whole nother player, especially able to play at the collegiate level. And I think with you being at that college level, it helps these guys maybe understand some things, can have someone to talk to about questions. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Coach, last thing I want to ask you, man, I don't want to hold you too much longer. A lot of the Murray community is already tuning in, and I want you to obviously address them, tell them, what you'll be bringing to this team and how excited you are to join. And then, maybe to some of the John Melvin fans who might be tuning in and watching, one last thank you from them, tell us why, Murray one more time and, kind of get those Murray fans hyped up and leave a little sign off to John Melvin fans who might be tuning in.
Man, I think I had like 4 staff members call me crying because I was leaving John Melvin. It was pretty cool in itself, but it made me kind of sad, But I'm super excited to be the basketball coach at Murray, man. And we're going to bring a sense of excitement, enthusiasm that hopefully Western Kentucky in general hasn't seen in a long time. I mean, that's what we want to do. That's the standard that I have for the program at the college level. That's the same standard I'm going to hold to these high school guys. We're going to work day in and day out to make sure that we improve and just win one game at a time. That's all we're worried about is going 1-0 every single day, whether that's practice, scrimmage game. I'm interested to see the schedule myself. I ain't even got to see it yet. I only know of one game that we for sure have, and I'm very excited about that one. I believe that's at St. Mary's, so that's going to be an interesting game. No, man, I'm extremely, extremely blessed and honored to be at such a prestigious school. I think Murray's one of the top academic schools in the state, GPA wise and all that, testing wise and all that good stuff. So, and then you get to mix that in with basketball in itself. It just sets you up for success automatically. Region 1 is a tremendous region. I think it's one of the biggest sleeper regions in the state. You find a ton of talent down there. You got guys that just graduated like Jace Burney at Ballard Memorial. He was Region 1 leading scorer. You find a ton of talent in that area that a lot of people don't know about just because it's that far region of West Kentucky. And myself, I'm a big marketing guy. It's what I majored in college and got a degree in. So I love promoting kids. I love promoting our program. That's exactly what I'm going to do. So hopefully that brings awareness to the other surrounding teams in the region. And this Region 1 isn't a sleeper no more, and we can go up to Rupp Arena. That's what we want at least. We want the Tigers to go up to Rupp Arena. Next year, if we can get there, that's what we hope for. Next year, we want to get to Rupp Arena and compete and win a game. We want to win a game, then we want to win the next one. That's all we want to do. We want to focus on winning one game at a time and being the best that we could possibly be day in and day out. We're going to bring a fast, intense style to the game, just same way it was at John Melvin. We were leading in the country in points per game at John Melvin. We want to lead the state in points per game at Murray if we can. So it's going to be that same thing. It's going to be fast, fun basketball that these kids are going to remember for the rest of their life, which, I mean, honestly, in my opinion, that's the best part. I can make a positive impact on their life. Like I mentioned earlier, maybe send some guys to go play college basketball or just college athletics in general. Ton of guys. I got a guy that's going to be a sophomore on our team. That's I believe he's a lineman on the football team, and he's already had offers from like Florida State and Vanderbilt and all this other good stuff. So I get to coach guys that probably going to be playing on Sundays one day. You know what I mean? So I'm extremely excited to be in Murray, to be in Region 1, to be back in high school basketball in Kentucky, because it's truly the best kind of basketball you can have is high school basketball in Kentucky right there. And I get to say that I'm a piece of that. I'm a piece of history now. So I'm excited just to get started next week and see what we got in open gym and then start developing these guys and get ready for December whenever we start the season, man.
For sure, Coach. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's a lot of things, coaches can take from this little interview and players and probably be excited for fans as well. I know hearing you talk about running the fast-paced system is definitely going to get a lot of people excited. We want to see some movement and things, getting a little sped up here in the area. But, Coach, I'm really excited, man, to have you at Murray. I think it's going to be a lot of fun watching you guys and what you all have in store. I appreciate you coming on here tonight. And also, we'll be looking at maybe we'll see Shaka Smart sitting in a Murray, sitting at a Murray basketball game up in the stands watching.
I'll have to call him. I got a couple friends that'll come, like Austin Sparrow at Campbellsville Harrodsburg, but I don't know about Shaka Smart, not this year at least.
Nah, well, man, it's going to be a lot of fun, hearing about your bio and, your things you've accomplished and, the work you've done. It's really cool, Coach. It's glad to have you on here, man. And, this might be the first interview or maybe talking thing you've done since taking the job. So I really appreciate you, coming on here and talking to me, Coach. Is there anything you want to leave off before we move on to Coach Karn?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you again for having me on. It's an opportunity. This is the first time I got to kind of talk to the Murray community in person. Got to say little things and meet somebody over Facebook and whatnot. But I'm getting feet on the ground here in the next week in Murray, and I'm excited to meet the community. I think we're going to have a little press conference and meet and greet and stuff. So I get to meet the players, I get to meet the students, the rest of the staff, and I'm extremely excited about it. Like I said, we're going to bring a different kind of energy to Murray. And Tiger Nation. So I'm excited about it in year one, what we can do and see who we can beat in year one, hopefully pull off some upsets. There's a lot of people doubting us right now, have us in the middle of the pack in the region, but I personally believe, like I told you earlier, there's some pieces there where we could be right there at the top. We just got to earn it. We got to work for it.
Coach, it was fun having you on, man. I hope to talk to you again soon. Appreciate you coming on. You too. That was Coach Doss, who recently just took the Murray head coach position, in the Region 1 of KHSAA basketball, stepping down from the college position to fill a big role at a traditional winning school in KHSAA. He's a winner everywhere he goes, so it'll be interesting to see how Region 1 in Murray is affected by him joining. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I appreciate him coming on. Our next guest and our final guest today is Coach Matt Karn, one of my great friends outside of this, and I'm excited to talk to him today and especially talk about Brussia and what they have to offer. Let's welcome on Coach Karn. Coach Karn, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. It's almost
appreciate you having me on. First time on here, man.
I know, a little overdue, man. Our good friend Greg had been telling me I got to get you on. And, I'd been a little busy, and you've been having a pretty good season, really good season, actually, taking them pretty far in the tournament with Brussia. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But, Coach, it's the off season for you now. You think you'd get a little bit of rest, but I don't know if that's really how it works in the coaching game. You still got to go out and recruit. So how's it been since the season ended, and what's some things Coach Karn's been up to?
Man, it's been good, man. I did have to take about a week or 10 days off and went back to Cleveland for a little bit just to kind of decompress the way I was thrown into the situation and stuff. And then I actually did some recruiting up there too. So, I'm a basketball hoop head, so I had to stay on it up there. Went and watched some games, even some AAU games, some kids that I had worked with before up there. And then, got back here and went to the state tournament last week. And then we've had recruits in all week here. So, between that and scheduling and everything else and get starting our player development program and weights, yeah, it's been hectic, but I love it.
Coach, you kind of said, kind of thrown into it, in a way you kind of were thrown into this season. You had some big shoes you had to step into pretty early. You were the intern head coach this year. So there wasn't no guarantee on a future or what might happen, and you took that intern role and you made a really good run in the tournament. You had some great guys on your team, a pretty fun run, a solid season. And you were just named the official head coach as well not too long ago, Brush. So you get to stay a little longer and get to coach them this year. And, for a lot longer, I expect a lot of success with Coach Karn here at Brussia. But, Coach, talk to me a little bit, about taking that role as the intern, this season. And, there's a little bit of pressure on you there, man. I say a little bit, but probably a little more than that. But there's some pressure on you when you take that role at a program like Brussia and the NAIA where you got to win and you got to get some talent. So kind of tell me, how did you approach that situation, taking the intern job, playing with this team?
Yeah, man, like I said, I was in Cleveland just, I was doing like some, NBA scouting, some freelance stuff, and then doing some trainings and stuff like that too up there. And then they called about 3 weeks before the first game, and then Sarah had stepped down, which I had coached with Sarah for about a year and a half when she first got the job, and I actually played for her professionally.
Yeah.
And it stopped, so that's how we knew each other. But, it was just – you kind of just I had a relationships with a couple of the guys that I recruited and a couple of the seniors that were here before, but a lot of the guys I didn't know. So, I couldn't come in and just, belt to them and just put all kinds of disciplines. I had to build the relationships before they're just going to tune me out. So a lot of the stuff early on was just kind of like implementing my culture and my style of play and, all that stuff. And then figuring out who some of the guys were and what they could do and the best way to win. And, some of that was a struggle early on, especially implementing my own culture and, the discipline and the work ethic and the competing every single day. And, some people couldn't handle it, and it was kind of bumpy early on. As playing 4 or 5 Division I schools, and then towards the end of the year and into conference play, we ended up picking off some big wins, beating a ranked team, which hadn't been done here in a long time. And then by the end of the season, we had it really rolling. If we had a couple more weeks, no telling what we could have been. So, that's kind of part of it, getting thrown in 3 weeks, and then I was by myself, and then I ended up getting an assistant like 2 days before the first game. So some of that was rough, but we all made it worth it in the end.
Well, Coach, you kind of talked about that roster and building connections with some of these guys, and there was a lot of talent on this year's roster. One guy we got to talk about is, the NAIA leading scorer, Damian Garcia, who averaged 24.5 points, having a really electric year this year. And then, a local guy, closer to my area, a good friend off the show, Lincoln Lockhart. So, kind of tell me about some of the guys who made this year's roster special and, won a lot of these games.
Yeah, I mean, Damian Garcia, he was just – honestly, he came from a Division II JUCO, and he was kind of overlooked a lot. He only averaged about 13 there, and they were a really good team. And then, that's one thing about us. We wanted to play fast, which we did that a little bit early, and then we wanted to change some things to help us win more. And, we run like a pro-style offense and put the ball in his hands. And, you can't ask for a better person off the floor. He's always in the gym early in the mornings, working out on his own. And, he really stepped into that role and earned it, and not even just the 24.5 a game. He was, top 5 or 10 in the conference in assists, rebounding, steals, and blocks. I mean, he was just an all-around stat stuffer and helped us contribute to winning. And obviously Lincoln, I recruited Lincoln here. I was the one that got Lincoln here before, and I was an assistant. So, me and Lincoln were close, and he decided to come back after a year at JUCO, and then he struggled a little bit. He had a big game the very first game, then he got sick and kind of struggled a little bit the first semester. But once conference play hit, he ended up being our second leading scorer on the season, had a bunch of huge games and helped us, propelled us to win. And then obviously we had a couple of seniors, John Sains and Mike Caswell, which were huge for our success too, which I had a previous relationship then. And then, other guys started buying in late, KT, Carry On and Nicola and Chavi. Chavi was probably our X factor. He wasn't playing much at all the first semester. He's a freshman. And then by the end, he probably ended up being the X factor to our team. Hello. I can't hear you.
I think I cut out for a second there, Coach Matt. You still hear me?
I was about to say, okay. I thought it was mine.
Yeah, I had a really good question there. That actually makes me mad. So I said, right now in this moment, we talk about the offseason, but now is the time for recruitment. Now is the time for kids, to start going on these visits and seeing what they like about this place and what they like about that and getting better relationships with the coaches. And, there's a lot of players in the state of Kentucky with offers to Brusha, might be getting looked at by yourself, the program. So why Brusha, and what makes it such a special place? Why should recruits choose here and, play under you and be in this environment?
Well, I think one thing, that's another reason I wanted to come back and take the job is my dad went here, and I think, and my brother did too for a little bit. So, it's close to home, and I think Kentucky kids are really overlooked. So we're putting a bigger priority on Kentucky kids and come in and make a high impact. And I think just, we're probably, I haven't done the research on this, but I think we're probably one of the only staffs that have an assistant who's from here locally. He played in the G League, was with the Pacers for a little bit. Obviously, I played Division I and played professionally, and, we're getting guys in here and developing them. And, just the way the transfer thing is, obviously our first year we were able to have a guy come in, and he's, getting D1 offers and probably going to move up. So we're going to come in and let guys play if they're doing the right things on and off the floor. And like I said, Brescia is a great education, place to get a great education, and a place to compete nationally in AI. We play a great non-conference schedule. We play several Division Ones, and great place for guys to come in and be able to play their games and get a great education and win some games.
Coach, we got to talk about one of your most recent commitments is Cole Phillips. He doesn't play in the KHSAA, so he might go over some people's heads. They might not know him, but, in the Christian, commission, where they play, he's a state champion. He's a state MVP. He's a really good player, and he's really talented, man. I'll say this right now. If you put Cole Phillips in the KHSAA, he's still doing what he's doing there. He's a great player, man. But talk about grabbing Cole and getting him a part of this team, and it's one of your first commits.
Yeah, I think he was a very, very underrated commitment. I'm glad we were able to get that one. I think Cole can come in and, help us a lot right away. He's done a good job working on his body, and I think he's strong enough I think that's a lot of kids, sometimes they struggle with the physicality of it coming in first, and he's done a great job working on that. And he's very, very high IQ. He can shoot the ball and do a lot of good things, and he's sneaky athletic. I think he come in and make a pretty big impact, pretty early, if he keeps working like that and doing what he's doing. So, and I've got very high expectations for Cole coming in, and I know he's one that puts the work in. And I text him all the time, and he's always in the gym or doing some rehab or working on his body. So that's the kind of kids that we're looking for here.
For sure, Coach. And it's not done yet. You still got some roster spots to fill, more guys with offers, things. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Coach, I don't want to take you down too long of a trip on memory lane, but, I have it listed below. You played, JUCO basketball under one of my great friends, Coach Sparks. And then you also played at Nebraska at the Division I level. So you kind of got to experience every level of basketball. Coach, in case some people don't know, I do want to talk about your past a little bit. Talk to me about your past in high school basketball, college basketball, some of the things you did there. I know a lot of people like to hear, about your Nebraska stories and playing there.
Yeah, man. So, I played at Ohio County. I played in the third region. We ended up going to the state tournament. We ended up losing to the state champion. We actually gave them the closest game, I think, in the whole entire state tournament. And then, I went to some camps and started getting some decent offers, some interest for some D1s, and then, but some JUCOs and stuff. And I wanted to bet on myself. And, I went to Shawnee. I met Coach Sparks, had a great relationships with him. And then, my freshman year, I ended up being a second team All-American, one of the top scorers in the country, top shooters in the country. And then, the second week of school, my sophomore year, I tore my ACL. So some of those, I had a bunch of Division I's like Penn State, Indiana, Tennessee, South Alabama, Rice. I had a bunch of Division I schools on me, and then some of them kind of were hesitant after my ACL, wanted me to work out. But, Nebraska still wanted me, and I had great relationships with Coach Croft and Coach Sadler, Coach Anwar, and a bunch of those guys down there. And, I redshirted my first year, and my second, I played a little bit my senior year, but, not as much, still coming off the rehab. But, man, it was a great time. My senior year, we were almost made the NCAA tournament. We had to win one game in the Big 12 tournament. And then we couldn't get that done. We played in the NIT 2 years I was there, and it was an awesome experience. I learned so much, and just, I think that's kind of why I was wanting to kind of coach after seeing all those and all the stuff that we went through. I think it was just helping to mold people. I think that's what they did. They helped me, and got a great education and everything else.
For sure, Coach. It's been a pretty fun journey for you, getting up to where you are now, and it's something really cool I wanted to speak about. Coach, I won't hold you much longer, man. I want to ask you this one last question. Some Brusha fans are tuning in. Of course, they got a great community, and then I'll leave you with this. I want you to, address those fans and thank them a little bit, and then leave us off with something before we hop off the show here tonight.
No, man, I think it was awesome getting down here late. I think the Brescia fans accepted me, and then the staff here, and the other coaches as well. They all accepted me right away, and they were always very supportive of me. And the athletic director, they were always very supportive of me. And even when I didn't know I was going to get the job, we still will be able to get the fans and all their students. Brescia's there's a lot of athletes here for different sports, and they would all come to the games, and we would draw really well, and even had some travel well. So I think they've accepted me. I think that we got a bright future in store here, bringing in, more recruits on top of the, 5-6 guys that we're keeping that are going to be, help us get with production next year. And we're bringing a faster pace next year with more, pressing and defense. And, I think it's going to be right up everybody's alley and help us, compete for big things that Brescia hadn't done in a while. I think that just shows it by the end of our season.
Well, Coach, I've enjoyed having you on tonight, man. It was good seeing you at the state tournament. Now have you on here to talk a little bit. Coach, one last thing. Is there anything you want to leave us off with? If not, we'll hop off the show tonight.
Man, just I think everybody just needs to come check us out, man. Just wherever you are in the state or even like locally in Southern Indiana or Southern Illinois, man, just look into our program, look into us, man. We're going to do big things. So, keep an eye out for us and get us on our radar because we're coming. We're coming hard.
Coach, I appreciate having you on tonight, Coach. We'll talk again soon. Thanks, Coach Carmer.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me, man. You're doing big things too, man.
Appreciate you, Coach. We'll talk soon. That was Coach Matt Carter-Brush hopping on the show tonight, man, ending things off for us. He just recently landed a big commit in Cole Phillips to play for him this season. He's got a few guys returning who's going to be instant impacts, and he's still out here recruiting a little bit. It's the off season to many people, but not for him. He's still got a lot of work he's putting in. So I appreciate Coach coming on here and talking to us tonight, man. I want to thank everybody who tuned into the show tonight, man. I thought it was a really good show. A lot of fun talking to you guys, interacting with the fans a little bit, talking about our new sponsors, and, of course, having our three coach guests on tonight. We'll be coming at you again with another show here soon in the next following days. Definitely want to start talking to some AAU programs and getting them on. Some teams coming back from their weekend that they had, and I just want to talk to them, man, and address how they've been playing. The basketball season's over in the KHSAA level, but there's still a lot of AAU going on. There's a lot of basketball. It doesn't stop here, so the show's still going to be coming on. Tuning in, big things happening. So I want to appreciate everybody tuning in to tonight's show. Join us next time and enjoy the show. Make sure to check out our sponsors, and I want to appreciate everybody